What up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Phil Risden, and we are here to talk a little bit about politics. It has been a wild few weeks. First off, I want to say shout out to my boy Abdul El-Sayed, the dude who is not afraid to talk that talk, man. He just won that primary out in Michigan. This is huge for leftists, anybody who cares about that stuff, and that is why I'm making this video, because I feel like we have to talk about the elephant in the room, all right? The thing that is the bane of existence for all Democrats, the thing that apparently every Democrat hates, the thorn in the side of the Democratic Party, and that is black people.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby! Don't you put that on us!
I don't know if you've seen in the media, but we're the reason that everything is wrong with the Democratic Party, because we just never vote for the right candidate. And, I feel like I've been seeing this kind of narrative and talking point happen for a very, very long time. And I do find it interesting. I do think there's slight nuggets of truth into it. We'll get into that. But all in all, I would like to say, fuck you guys, because when it comes to the Democratic Party, for centrists, we're the worst because not enough of us are voting centrists. And then with leftists, we're the worst because not enough of us are voting for leftists. How about some of you guys get up off of your asses and start actually interacting with us instead of just talking about us as if we are data centers or ICE, because I feel like that's the real thing. And the reason I'm bringing this up, obviously, is because of Abdul El-Sayed's narrow victory in Michigan and how surprised white leftists were that this win, this victory, was so narrow. And to me, I'm not surprised at all. And it's not that I'm not surprised because of black people being inherently conservative or inherently being corporate Democrats or anything. But I'm not surprised at all because I feel like I've noticed that as much as I love Abdul El-Sayed, he's never really checked in with the black community very much. And in Michigan, that's something that you can't simply run away from. I feel like this is a main reason why the South has been doing all this gerrymandering stuff for so long, right? It's a big deal now, but it's been happening for decades, I believe. And that's why, because there's a sizable black population down South. And if the black population actually gets the proper representation as far as their population down there, things would be very, very different. And you're now just seeing this right now with this whole Abdul El-Sayed stuff. But I'll say right now, he did still win, and a victory is a victory no matter how slim. But to him and all his supporters, including myself, you have to realize that this is a warning shot. And if you want to win without any debate, without any close margin, without sweating, you're going to have to talk to black people. Case in point, Francesca Hong's devastating loss in Wisconsin, she lost by 0.4%. 0.4%. It might be the closest election I've ever seen in my entire life. That could have been prevented. Now, the black population in Wisconsin as a whole is relatively small, but she already did very, very well in Milwaukee. And in Milwaukee, the black population is about 38 to 40%. When you want to get boosted by a certain group of people, you have to step to that group of people, not just through correspondence and interviews on CNN, but actually shake their hands. Actually talk to them and find out what it is they want and what it is that they're dealing with in their society that they think is unjust. In this country, since the moment that we came in contact with America or just the Western world in general, black people have pretty much only been a commodity, right? Whether it's our labor or our creativity or our voting power. I know there's a lot of people who are probably watching this and rolling their eyes like, black people, oh my God, what are you talking about? Because we do get talked about all the time on the news, the black vote, the black vote, the black vote. The issue is, though, is that everybody talks about the black vote, but doesn't really seem to interact with many black people. Come on, man. One of your biggest districts is Detroit, and you're barely interacting with black people at all. Like, Detroit could literally put that shit in the bag for you. and you're not interacting with these people, it's always this kind of theoretical thing that's going on without the input of black people. You might see black people in the comment section talking shit, right? Or saying how they believe things, but you're not really seeing that in the media. And it's something that is discussed, but it is not discussed with us. And that is a very, very serious issue. It's almost like if we were going to be talking about, school shootings or something like that, and all kids were adults, but you weren't consulting the kids about how they feel about any of the things that were going on. That's the only way I could kind of describe it. There's this sort of political infantilization when it comes to black people in our interactions with politics, right? We have our people like Clyburn or Kamala Harris and stuff like that. These corporate Democrats, you do have those. And then you also have these weird like Candace Owens types, these Officer Tatum types, right? That are on the fringe, but they're more in the social media world. So I understand how on the outside, it can look like, oh wow, black people are like super conservative, or they're just like corporate Democrats. So anytime we don't get the things that we want, it must be them behind it solely, essentially. Like they're the ones not voting for this shit. And so now we just don't get the stuff. While there might be people who are like Officer Tatum and like Clyburn, by and large, the average black person is very, very, very open to socialist ideals. We were raised on it. Quite often, a lot more than you guys were raised on it. And by you guys, I mean every other type of race that is out there in America. When it comes to black people and the diaspora and our different civil rights leaders, pretty much most, if not all of them, were leftists. And so as much as we might have Jesus on the mantle, and we might have JFK, one of us is going to have Marcus Garvey. One of us is going to have Malcolm X. One of us is going to have Stokely Carmichael. One of us is going to have Martin Luther King, of course, right? And all of these people inform how we feel as a general population. We are not a monolith. That is a fact. And at this point, it sounds like a catchphrase when you hear it in comment sections. But there are things that we do share collectively. And I will say the understanding of leftist thought, at least on some level, is something that is definitely inherent to the black population in general. So we're very, very open to these things. The issue is that nobody is meeting us in the middle. You know what I mean? I feel like there's this weird underlining thought, right? That just like after slavery and segregation, everything's okay. And yeah, sometimes things can be a little grimy, but it's not that big of a deal. So if a politician is telling you that they're going to give Medicare for all, then just abide by it. Whatever it is, whether it's free healthcare or free college, is also just free black healthcare and free black college. And that is true. But what you don't realize is that the country has betrayed the trust of black people for so long, so many times, that they don't even believe in that stuff actually being implemented. They believe in it, in its existence, and that it should exist, but it being implemented is a whole nother thing. And a lot of that stems from people just not wanting to actually check in with black people on what they actually think about things. When it comes to leftism, I definitely think there are some major differences between black leftism and white leftism and how those things are understood, right? I spent 15 years in New York City around tons of woke people living in Bushwick, Brooklyn. So I was in the heart of it. And I can tell you that if you are a black leftist and you deal with a white leftist, it is almost inevitable that you guys are going to get into the conversation of race versus class. And they're going to be on the side that race doesn't even matter. It's kind of just this bullshit consequence of classism, And if we have class consciousness, then racism will just disappear, essentially. And as black people, we all know that's just not true. In fact, you have to fix racism along with classism, because if you don't fix racism, but we do have class consciousness, people will start to regress because of their own inherent biases that they have based on race. And I feel like that is a major fear for a lot of black people as well too, is that we'll get roped in with this idea of free healthcare and free schooling and all that stuff, and everybody else will be living in this socialist utopia with jetpacks and free everything, and black people will be the ones living in a Soviet concentration camp, essentially. Everybody else will get the positives of communism and socialism, and black people will get only the negatives. And I think that is something that a lot of people hold in their heart because of the way this country has always interacted with black people. And if it doesn't get fixed, and if it doesn't get approached in the next few years, we are going to have a very, very, very serious issue in this country, especially when it comes to leftist candidates. I was watching Vosh the other day, and he used a buzzword that I pray to God does not get picked up by 4chan, and that is ethno-narcissism. Apparently, ethno-narcissism is when a racial group puts their racial grievances over progress, and kind of puts that in the way, decides not to vote a certain way to halt everything. And he's essentially blaming black people for different radical candidates or different democratic socialist candidates not being elected or not having as much support as he thinks they should have. I understand how someone might think that putting your racial grievances to the forefront is halting progress. My question would be, though, how come those racial grievances aren't part of the progress? This is a main issue with a lot of white leftism, to be quite honest with you, is it's almost a little bit infantile. Like, there's no object permanence. A lot of things that they look at can be similar to the way that like MAGA people look at that stuff, where it's just face value. There's nothing behind it, nothing happened before it to make it happen or anything like that. And that can cause a real issue. Number one, you can make a lot of mistakes and misjudge things. You can also be very, very hypocritical when you do that stuff. Case in point, we lost the 2024 election to Donald Trump, right? And that mostly was because a lot of leftists did not vote for Kamala Harris, and that was because she didn't condemn the genocide. I understand why they didn't do it. I voted for her, but I understand why they didn't do it. It's because the genocide is wrong. The problems in Gaza are awful, and you don't want somebody who supports that, even if they are the lesser of two evils, okay? And there's so many people who can understand that, but they don't understand that for black people, our existence is our Gaza. I'll be quite honest with you. A lot of black people's history is very similar to the history of Palestine, regardless of us living in Africa or living here or living in England, anywhere. You know what I mean? People either steal us and bring us somewhere and then condemn us for being there in the first fucking place, or whether we're living alone, people come, they bring their shit, and they start colonizing the whole fucking thing and killing people in droves, and no one gives a shit ever. Ever. So to call possibly one of the longest genocides in human history, which is the genocide of the black diaspora, regardless of where they are across the fucking world, to call that ethno-narcissism, and to minimize the grievances of all these other races who have very serious grievances as well, is childish and stupid. And that is why you're going to have a very, very hard time dealing with certain minority groups in certain parts of the country where they actually have the bargaining power to be a serious thorn in your side. Like it or not, black people are influential in this country. They're cultural tastemakers in this country, and we have a lot more voting power than we get credit for. And I feel like recognizing that is the big difference between Mamdani and Abdul El-Sayed. You know, Mamdani, as much as people may like him or dislike him, he has always checked in with the black community, and he has always tried to advocate for the black community.
Outside of affordability, because a lot of folks say that, what has been your strategy? What has been your execution to make sure that black voters feel seen, heard, and acknowledged? Because Democrats at large are struggling with black voters right now.
I think the first step is a recognition that you have to earn people's support. Nobody owes you their support. And with that has to come a little bit of humility. The first question that was often asked of me when I was introducing myself in the mayoral primary was who? Because most New Yorkers had never heard of me. And why would they have? I was a state assembly member representing Astoria in Long Island City, and I was going out to a church in Southeast Queens, and I was speaking to them in a race where they had heard of a number of other candidates, either for months, years, sometimes even for decades. And introducing myself, sometimes it meant taking those early steps again and again, but always understanding that you have to prove why people should believe. And yes, a lot of people talk about affordability, and it affects everyone across New York City. We also know it doesn't affect everyone in the same way. In the nation's most expensive city, right here in New York City, the median household wealth of a black family is less than $3,000. We have seen over the last few decades 200,000 black New Yorkers pushed out of this city. And so when you are coming up against that history, you also have to understand why people might be skeptical of someone saying that things could be different, because people have said it for quite a long time. People have not delivered it for almost that same period of time. And so now what I see as the opportunity of governing is the opportunity to earn that trust. And I never begrudge someone that they may not have it on day one. It's my job to earn it on day 2, day 3, and every day after that.
When he started in his campaign, there was that same bullshit, that same narrative. Black people aren't going to like him. He's not for black people. What are you specifically doing for black people? And I say that to say this: you don't even need something specifically for black issues. You just need to talk to people about black issues, show them how your problem solving is going to help them. You don't need a specific black aid program. You just need to hear the problems of black people and just be like, hey, I have a program that does this, and this. And, you know, those problems you're talking about would actually be alleviated within this thing. And I know there's a lot of people who are going to say like, oh, well, maybe a black person just read about the different policies that these people are doing. And I'm telling you, they do read it. But it's until they look a person in their eyes, shake their hand, and hear the sincerity in their voice speaking directly to them that they actually think that someone might really do it. And as much as I like Abdul, that is something that he seems to struggle to do. And I gotta say, that's my one weak spot for Abdul, is that he doesn't seem to recognize that. He doesn't really seem to engage with black people too much, you know, and what their issues may be, especially as a Muslim guy, because that is something that does not get talked about enough, is the friction sometimes between black people and Muslim Arab people in a lot of these communities, because they share a lot of communities. But to be part of that culture and still not really engage with something obvious that you should easily know about, like you grew up in Michigan, how do you not know that black people and Muslim people in Michigan sometimes have a little bit of dust ups? You know what I mean? Like Dearborn, Michigan, I believe, is the most Muslim county or something in the entire country. I believe it has like the most Muslims per capita, but it's also a good black population as well too. There's tons and tons of black people there. When they look at the police statistics, statistically, black people get stopped in traffic stops way more than Muslim people do in Dearborn, Michigan. Shit like that is what Abdul El-Sayed should be talking about and trying to figure out with people and trying to problem solve with people. And when you do that, you know, it goes a long way. It means a lot to people, because black people are sick and tired of the bullshit too. But they're sick and tired of the bullshit and sick and tired of all the extra bullshit. And we are sick and tired of all the extra bullshit. And in the same way that people are willing to let people lose elections over Gaza, we're willing to let people lose elections over us. And I feel like that needs to be understood and not seen as clearly malicious, but more as a last-ditch effort to finally get some semblance of respect out here that is not just cosmetic. So I would suggest to anybody running for office and anybody who is a leftist and, you know, wants these candidates to win, encourage them to interact with black people more. Don't just talk about black issues. Talk to black people. Anyway, that is the video, guys. I'll see you later. And make sure to like, share, subscribe. Peace.